What's up, Fever Nation? I'm Alex Golden.
And I'm Casey Johnson.
And welcome back to another episode here of the Fever Focus podcast, where the Indiana Fever improved to 3-2 after a 90-73 victory over the Portland Fire. But before we get into the game, Casey, the biggest storyline coming out of tonight's Indiana Fever basketball team is Caitlin Clark ruled out with a back injury around 5:30, and now there's a lot of questions on why this wasn't reported the day before. Why did she sit out? So we've got a lot to discuss here with the injury to Caitlin Clark and a lot of different reporting out there, but I don't know where you want to start. This is a very, very interesting storyline to talk about.
You know, Alex, of all of the different types of PR disasters that one can undergo, you know what the worst type of PR disaster is?
Tell me.
It is one that is completely and utterly unnecessary. One of your own making. And that is absolutely the situation right here with the Indiana Fever. This whole thing is so weird. And it's for no reason at all. I keep thinking about that podcast that I recommended, that podcast episode I recommended a couple of episodes ago here on this show that had the topic between a former player, a current reporter, and a current podcaster. Is the WNBA ready for the level of scrutiny that other major leagues in the world get? And this is kind of exactly what they were driving at. Now, my thought on this situation is that it's actually, as far as what's going on, it's probably very easy to figure out. What I think is happening is just that Caitlin has been dealing with leg issues over the course of the entire last year, as we know. When asked about why her back kept getting adjusted, Caitlin said, "It's taking me a while to trust my body again." What that basically means to me is that she still doesn't fully trust that body. As a result, she doesn't trust that leg. As a result, she's probably carrying a lot more of her weight in her back, which is leading to back tightness. If you've ever thrown your back out, you know that the first thing that happens is you start feeling it all the way down the sciatic nerve. You feel it down every time that you move your legs. Trust me, I've been fat a long time. Whenever your back is hurt, whenever you move your legs, you feel it up your entire back. That's my thought on probably what's happening right now. This is preventative maintenance, and overall, I think it's a non-story. But what is the story is how the Indiana Fever organization has handled it. If they said that, if they said, "Hey, she's learning to trust her body again. As a result, she's had some tightness in her back. It's nothing to really worry about, but we're not taking any chances," that is one thing. But to me, this is the most damning thing about Stephanie White in this leadership position. I think that she's a really excellent coach. I think that she schemes up a lot of really good stuff, which we're going to get to over the course of this review of the game. But the one thing that I can say about her is, man, for somebody who also does commentary in as her other job, she's not very adept at handling these issues when it's levied her way, and I think it has to do, to tie it back to what I was originally mentioning, the WNBA has never had, shout out to, the James Boyd types around them, at least consistently. The journalist who is not afraid to ask tough questions and to respond with another tough question and another one after that if they think that the question that they asked was satisfactory and the answer given was not. Most usually, it would be something that was very positive, because that is and has been the culture around the WNBA up until the last couple of seasons. And if you watch what Stephanie White said in relation to this injury both times, she contradicts herself a couple of times, saying it's not load management, but also she's healthy. And even though
Yeah.
she's healthy, we're holding her out, which is exactly what load management and an injury management strategy actually is. And then after when, she was being asked if there was anything long term, she literally said, "No. Well, I don't know." You can't do it. You can't have it, and as a communication major, it just boggles my mind in so many ways how this ends up happening again and again, because you just have to breathe through it and speak clearly and not speak reactionarily, because this has become the lead topic of our show in a game that was very impressive for the Fever. This does not have to be talked about if you just manage it from the beginning, and they didn't. And it boggles my mind how stuff like this happens.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think you laid it out very nicely because personally, like when I started hearing in the news that Caitlin was out, I was like, ah, bummer. Casey's going to the game. So what an absolute bummer to find out after you buy tickets that the star player is not going to go. And I think you're not the only fan that probably felt that way because
Yeah.
I'm sure that it did have an impact on how fans would have reacted to maybe going to this game. So from what Chloe Peterson, great, beat writer for the Indy Star, put out, she said Stephanie White says Caitlin Clark did not participate in practice yesterday, getting treatment instead, and she woke up this morning with stiffness. For us, it's not time to take a chance. Says she doesn't anticipate it being ongoing, but adds she's not a doctor. This is all Stephanie White talking pregame. She also said that she's healthy. We're not managing anything like you mentioned. This is just a back issue that we want to make sure we give the time to be ready. When I heard all that, I'm used to covering the NBA. And one thing that you see on the NBA is the injury report. And now it's become even more excessive because of sports gambling. And
Yes.
that is something that can become a problem when you do not mention or list injuries prior to the game. And so now you have national reporters from ESPN and all over saying, the WNBA has got to look into the Fever for not reporting this injury. And it does go back to the very first game of the season. We saw and we heard that Caitlin Clark was leaving the court to go back to the locker room. And what was happening? She was getting back adjustments. She was getting back work done. And Stephanie White was asked about that after the first game. And she said, get used to this. It's going to be a reoccurring thing. And so when you kind of already know going into it, like, okay, Caitlin's kind of got this back issue, but she's playing through it, but she's not injured. She is injured, whatever. It's just something that is very complex to follow. And like you said, it doesn't need to be this way. All you
Mhm.
have to do is just put her on the injury report as questionable, right? Or game time decision. I mean, how many times do you see in the playoffs when a player is severely injured and there's a legit shot that they're not going to play, that they're listed as game time decision, or the coach will not reveal pregame if that player is going to play or not for a strategic purpose. In the regular season, it doesn't usually matter as much for most teams, but this is just a weird thing. And then as soon as the report came out from the Fever's official account saying Caitlin Clark was out for the game, Scott Agnes said that she will not play in tonight's game. I'm told it's part of a strategic management plan for the season. This is the Fever's fourth game in 8 days. Scott's been around for a while. Scott's got a great following. I don't doubt that he got information about what the plan was here.
Yeah.
But I also have to wonder if Stephanie White kind of had to backtrack that because that could be a violation against the league's rules, especially since they didn't report it. So there's a lot going on there, but I just think, at the end, I'm pretty sure you mentioned this, what James Boyd pressed on with Steph White at the end. She basically said, not everybody that doesn't practice or gets a pro day is on the injury report. That happens all the time, and she wasn't listed on the injury report earlier because we expected her to play. She was then asked if Clark is injured. She said her back is sore. If there's anything more detailed than that, that's the training staff.
And that too also is something that kills me, because my goodness, I think Tony East pointed this out a couple of days ago when Aaliyah was down with the leg injury, and Stephanie said, "You can ask the training staff if it is worse than that or whatever," and Tony tagged at the end of his tweet and said, "By the way, worth noting, training staff is not available to talk to the press."
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't talk to the press. Stop referencing us to somebody who And the thing is, I think the part that really kills me about this is you are feeding the fires of all of the people who think that your organization hates Caitlin Clark and is incompetent and all of that. And all of that is so dumb and it's so untrue. All you have to do is just communicate properly. And none of this is an issue. Why do you keep bringing this criticism on yourself? And now people are saying they need to get somebody serious in charge. They need to do this. They need to do that. But serious people are in charge. They were one game away with a hospital squad from the WNBA finals last year. Let's not discount that. But like, why do you bring this on yourself by not conducting yourself with more media training? By the way, Stephanie, when you're a member of the media, you're
I
a
mean,
member of the
she's been doing this coaching gig for a long time too. You would think by now she would know how to handle these types of questions. And I don't know whose responsibility it is to make the injury report, but I think that somebody needs to step in and kind of alleviate some of this pressure off of Steph White. And maybe this is a conversation she has with Amber Cox and Kelly Kroskoff. Maybe one of those two can actually get out in front and kind of address this from a management standpoint versus, putting Steph there as the face. But how many times do we see it in professional sports that when it comes to injuries, coaches are asked about it ad nauseum? And so you just have to be more prepared and ready to give the best answers. And when you don't, it doesn't look good. Now, I think there are a lot of fans out there of Caitlin Clark that are reading way too far into this about it being something bigger than just what it is. But I think at the end of the day, um, it probably is more in the lines of what Scott Agnes had reported. It is probably more maybe her back didn't feel 100%. They don't want to push her. There's a lot of games coming up. Probably felt like Portland wasn't as big of a threat as maybe some of the other games before they hit the road trip. Take it easy. They've had a lot of games too. They're not used to playing this many games in a week.
And, Alex, what is worth noting here, and all of this makes sense, and this is the quiet part that they can't say out loud, but hey, 4th game in 8 days, body's not used to the strain quite yet, just got back from injury, we decided to, rest her for the night, especially because she wasn't feeling 100%. Makes sense, makes sense, makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. Well, why didn't you rest her on Friday before you go out on the trip? You know what Friday happens to be, Alex?
The weekend.
It happens to be the first night of the season where they're doing one of their university hat nights,
Mm,
and it just so happens that it is the University of Iowa hat night. You're not sitting there Friday. You're just
yeah.
not.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of reasons why. It just these look, the team, the management, they all look at the schedule. Training staff, they look at the schedule. They know what's best for Caitlin, and it's hilarious to me that this has taken up so much already of the beginning of our podcast because of how much PR nightmare this was from the Fever. But I think this is a good way to kind of put a bow on it, say, let's see what happens Friday. If she doesn't play Friday, I think we have to actually talk more about this being a long-term concern with Caitlin. But if she's back Friday and she seems like herself, because let's be honest, the first 4 games that they played this year, I thought she's looked pretty healthy. I mean, even when
Yeah.
she left and came back into the game, she didn't look like she was like sore or holding anything or grimacing or tired. Yeah, she looked a little rusty, but nothing along the lines of, not playing good basketball. So
Yeah,
that's
and if it
that's
wasn't Caitlyn, we wouldn't have even noticed, right? Like,
yeah.
if it was Ty Harris that was going back into the tunnel to get adjusted, but p that happens to players all the time.
Mm,
Players go back into the tunnel to get quick adjustments all the time. It's because it's Caitlyn that we're even paying attention to it, which is another reason why, to a certain extent, this is so absurd because guess what? I saw this with another point guard, in Indiana. Okay, oh, you were dealing with a hamstring/groin thing, and then when you came back, you developed a back thing because you didn't trust your legs quite well enough? That's the 2024 Pacers postseason run in a nutshell for Tyrese Halliburton.
yeah.
That was the year that he did the post-game meet and greet, and he didn't sit down because his back was hurting, right? So, like,
And
I
he
don't
had to
know.
play so many games to qualify for All-NBA,
Right.
which is why he was kinda pushing through playing with that little bit of an injury, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and, I just say that to say, to me, literally every dot makes sense when you connect it together, and if they had just connected the dots, then we wouldn't be having this discussion, but alas, so we have had.
It's like they walked out it's like Stephanie White walked out there having no idea the media was gonna ask her about the injury.
Yeah,
It's like, how unprepared do you have to be? I mean,
yeah,
as soon as I saw the report, I was like, "This is the biggest storyline of the day." Like, I texted you,
yeah,
and I was like, "Well, we got some news to talk about because clearly this is gonna become bigger than it needs to be because of who it is." Everything
yeah.
involving Caitlin Clark becomes magnified way more than it needs to be, and that's just that. Now, let's talk about this game. You were there.
Wonderful
7
game.
17-point victory from the Fever. Their starters in the plus minus dominated. A guest of our show, John Nolan, does a great job as the play-by-play radio voice for the Indiana Fever. He had said before tonight's game, out of all the players on the roster, Maisha Hines-Allen had the best plus minus, and it did feel like that leading into this game, but she gets a -2 in this game, so you just got the John Nolan curse. We'll just go ahead and put that on there, that radio curse, the
Yeah.
announcer curse. But the starting five, I mean, that is a pretty impressive plus minus right there with 3 players getting a plus 22 or more.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that the MVP of this game, I guess more along the lines of a, like, a UVP, MUVP, the most unsung valuable player, let's say,
Who does that?
somebody me, just now. Somebody who's not going to get enough, love for how well, she played this game actually is Ty Harris. People who are going to look at just the stat sheet are going to see that she did not score any points and say, "Well, you know." But what was really happening over the course of this game was my thought going in, I was telling my wife on the way in, is this is now going to be a game. Okay, how good is your offensive system? Can your offensive system run and score despite itself, or does it need the linchpin of Caitlin Clark in order to open it up? What I found was interesting was the Portland Fire were playing, defense for a lot of the game as if it was Caitlin Clark who was bringing the ball up the court. They were sending 2 to the ball almost all the time and essentially just trying to event create on defense, and it did end up leading to some turnovers, but the way that the Fever were able to handle that sticky defense and were able to move past it. The fact that Ty Harris knew she didn't have to score, and she dished it to Aaliyah, who had 24, and she dished it to Kelsey, who had 21. She dished it to Lexi, who had 16, and there's the bulk of your points right there. This team has so many scorers on it that you really don't even need everybody involved to be a scorer on a given night. You just need a couple of people to do what they do, and that's what we ended up getting here. Ty Harris did not score any points, but she had 7 assists, and she was the exact steady hand that they needed to just make the right basketball play, and she continually did.
That is why they brought her in here as almost as soon as free agency started for the Fever, looking to kind of find that guard, and this is someone that's also played with Stephanie White, someone she's very comfortable with. And when you look at the stats, right, just from a team perspective, when you outshoot a team by 18 points at the
Mhm.
three-point line and then add in another +9 from the free throw line, that is going to be incredibly hard to overcome if you're the opponent, right? Or the opposing team. So, yeah, points in the paint. Yeah, the Fire still had a 12-point advantage there, but when you're able to get to the free throw line like the Fever did, it just kind of shows, hey, they were probably getting into the paint a little bit more than maybe the box score shows in terms of how many points they actually scored there. So, Ty Harris is just really good at getting so many people involved. And sure, Caitlin Clark, you're not going to be able to replace that. There's no way you're going to be able to do that. But I do think that one thing we can go back to from last year, you mentioned it, kind of the hospital team. This is a group of Lexi Hall, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell that have played a lot together without Caitlin Clark, and they know how to win basketball games without her. And that's not necessarily something you want to worry about, obviously. But if you are put in that situation, you do know how each other works and how you guys have to step up in different ways to make this work. And this isn't me trying to be all hot takey again on another podcast, but I'm just going to put it out there. Like with Stephanie White, I feel like these are the kind of games and these are the kind of like, this is the kind of team she likes to coach, where it does seem like, I've got more of a challenge ahead of me now that I've got this star player out. How can I go about and figure out what I need to do to make this team work? She obviously did that last year as she led this team to one game away from the WNBA finals. And I just feel like, the Caitlin Clark aspect of it and the element of that, it's such a unique fit with what she does skill set wise and trying to get everybody else involved. I feel like it was probably easier with the team that they had out there to say, hey, you know what? We had some really good stuff that worked last year. Let's just kind of go back to that.
Yeah, especially when the other thing that you can say about Aaliyah, about Kelsey, about Lexi is that about KK as well. All of these players who played significant minutes down the stretch run last year is that not only do they know how to win and how to play without Caitlin, they know how to win and how to play with somebody random. Really. I mean,
That's a good
running the
point.
point. They had so many people come in and out last year. The quote that always sticks in my head is actually from a similar situation during the Pacers season when Garrison Matthews checked in for the first time. I've referenced it on the show before, and Stan Van Gundy said, "What are the Pacers supposed to do?" Garrison Matthews just walked up to Andrew Nimhard and said, "I'm Garrison Matthews. Nice to meet you." But that is a very shockingly real situation there in what they actually have to go through on a daily basis. And now they have to put the backup in, and they have to figure it out with the backup on short notice, but they were putting it together with strangers off of the street last year. So many players in street clothes that they had to block off part of the first row so that they could all sit down. Players that were off the street that then got injured, so you needed different players off the street. And so this was a situation where, okay, if you can make it up the court, get past half court or not even quite to half court, and you can make the pass, that first pass to Lexi, to Kelsey, to Aaliyah, to the connecting piece and Monique Billings. If you can make that first pass, we've got the rest of it. And we will swing the ball back around to you. You'll make the one extra pass, and then you'll end up assisting on a three, which Ty Harris did multiple times, right? And this was a game where a lot of the Fever, most notably Sophie and Raven, just were not shooting the ball well at all. And so this is one of those, what is the actual ceiling of this team? Because if even Sophie made a couple of those threes or Raven made a couple more of those threes, I mean, Raven would have had a number of assists if Sophie had just hit some of the shots that had come her way. What is the ceiling of this team? Because the way that they handled a very scrappy Portland Fire team tonight is really impressive to me because they didn't play with their food. They just went for it for 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. If you look at the 3-point shooting by Sophie and Raven Johnson, 1 for 12, and you take their two, bad shooting nights away, this team shot 50% from three.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny when you look at it from that perspective because the starters were just unbelievable. Lexi, 4-4 in this game. I mean, straight across the board, 4-4 from the free throw line, 4-4 from three-point land. I mean, can't get any better than that. That's
Yeah.
perfect. And I mean, great to see Aaliyah Boston have a really nice bounce back game as well with 24 on 8 of 11 shooting. I mean, that to me is what I love to see from her. And you could tell like other players are going to get more involved when you do have Caitlin Clark off the court because Caitlin just is such an offensive powerhouse
Mhm.
that she's going to have the ball in her hands. She's going to be scoring. She's going to be looking to pass. I mean, we've seen games where her and, Lexi pretty much make up over half the field goal attempts. And this right here, I think, was a much better balance where you're still going through your star players to get the most attempts. And then I'm still surprised Raven Johnson had the most attempts in this game, 3 for 12. But it's just, it's one of those things, like you said, you're still trying to figure out what do you have, how you put it all together. And this team right now, as currently constructed, I think they have enough to win a championship if Caitlin can stay healthy. The group that played tonight without Caitlin, I think they can kind of do what they did last year and be on the cusp of getting to the WNBA finals. I just don't think they have enough to win it. And that's the difference between Caitlin Clark and no Caitlin Clark, right? And that's not a knock on any of these players,
Yeah.
but it's
Big
just
headline. Caitlin Clark, good player, important to team.
yeah, Keelan Clark, great player, right? So I just, there's so many players we're seeing kind of grow. I think an interesting decision here. No Demirs Dantas in this game, continuing to kind of go with the more athletic, physical bigs and Hines Allen and Simpson off the bench. I like that a lot. And I think with Monique Billings, kind of giving you more of that athletic stretch big, and Aaliyah can do that. You don't need Dantas as much, but I just like how there's so much. We talked about this in the preseason, so I don't want to rehash the same points, but I do love that they have the versatility at the 5 that you're looking for. And the more and more I watch Timpson play, man, it's hard to keep her off the court. We said that was going to be
Yeah.
a problem, and I think she might have even jumped in the power rankings of hard to keep off the floor when it comes to her and Raven Johnson.
Yeah, I think that this is one situation. Obviously, the cardinal sin is to base just about anything off of single game plus minus. We hear it over and over and over again. But when you look at the totality of Michaela Timpson's numbers tonight, I think that the plus minus is actually very important because 2 points on 1 of 1 shooting, 5 rebounds. Other than that, no assists, no turnovers, no steals, no blocks. Plus 11.
Yeah.
And that is exactly who Michaela Timpson is to a T. Unless you are watching her play, you're going to think she's the least impactful player on the floor. And when you watch her play, you know that she is among the most impactful in her own way. She's everywhere all the time. She's one of the fastest players on the court, even at sort of an advanced height. There was one outlet pass that the Fire were trying to throw down the court, and Timpson sprinted in front of it like a free safety and almost picked it off. If there hadn't been a situation where it had gone out of bounds on the 50-50 ball, then that would have been her steal for the game, and that would have been such a crazy highlight. Michaela Timpson, when you factor in that she is a tiny little baby child, like she is in her 2nd year and it is only up from here, that is borderline scary, unless, of course, you're the Indiana Fever.
All right. Is there anybody else you would like to highlight individually here or anything else you would like to discuss in terms of a team standpoint of how this game was played? Because when you're there at the game, there's always more you can watch. And I do know there was a special moment that took place at halftime as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of things. Number one, being as close to the floor as I was tonight, I never realized exactly how constant Sophie Cunningham's communication on the floor is. I could hear her from 12 rows up, calling out switches, pointing everybody in the right direction. The way that she runs that second unit is absolutely amazing. I do want to say I think that the Portland Fire have something to build off of here. They're obviously not very good yet, but we were, talking what is going to be the identity of this team. The identity of this team seems to be effort. They were sticky, they were on-ball pests, point of attack defenders, which ended up causing actually quite a lot of fouls, particularly from Louisa Geiselsutter,
Nice.
sorry. I almost got it too.
Better than
Um
I would have got.
I was remarking to my wife on the way home, I was like, "I can't wait to hear Alex try to pronounce Geiselsuiter."
I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to try. I know better. I know
Yeah,
better.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a man who hasn't even conquered the silent S in Eve Meese's name, so
Who,
this
me?
is. Yeah,
What do you call him? Eve? Missy?
That is how it's pronounced, yes. The S is
Really?
silent. Yeah, the S is silent, it's French. Just the same way that the S in George Niang is also silent.
Well, I like Eve's better. It sounds better.
No, but,
What
that
am I
you
supposed to call you?
you
Is your name French? Am I supposed to call you K-E?
no, my
K-E
name's
Johnson?
not
K
French. It's crazy how that works. It just depending on the dialect of the name.
I'm gonna look this up. You're making me mad now. Not mad, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, actually, the head of the gaming company Ubisoft, his name is Yves Guillemot, spelled the same way, or at least I think he still works
Eve
for them.
Misi is how you say it.
Yeah, Yves Misi. The S is silent because it's French.
Hmm.
Point of reference, my wife minored in French and lived in France.
She's probably like, Alex is an idiot.
But no, you mentioned something really cool did happen at halftime. Our mutual friend, at least I'd like to imagine that I'm, friends with him at this point and not just a client. My season ticket holder, season ticket representative rather from the Pacers, Dennis, got recognized as one of the
Let's
special
go, Dennis.
members of the, Pacers staff at halftime, as they do from time to time at both Pacers and Fever games, but, I can't say enough good things about him and the experience that he's given us being a season ticket holder, just how good of a guy he is
Mm.
too, that he's the type of guy that, like, if you're one of his clients like, we were waiting in the lobby before the Fever home opener, and he came up to us and, like, tapped us on the shoulder and, like, sought us out because he legitimately wants to seek us out to have a conversation. He's just awesome. It was nice to see him get a little bit of recognition. I messaged him afterwards and I said, "Man, I always knew you could hold a basketball at half court, and now look at you." And he texted right back and said, "Yeah, years of hard work are paying off."
No,
So, yeah,
I love
shout out
Dennis.
to Dennis. I love that man.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is he wants to take care of his, I wouldn't say clients, but I guess they are clients, but, just take care of the people that are his season ticket holders. I mean, he does a very good job of that, and I will say this too, last year, during the watch party for Game 7 that was held at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, tickets were gone in seconds, and,
Yeah.
he was able to hook me up with one, that, that he was like, "If you need any more, let me know. I got a couple more." And I was able to get a couple friends in there as well to the watch party. So, Dennis is great, and if you're looking to buy season tickets to the Fever or the Pacers, give Dennis a call. I think he can help you out, point you in the right direction, even if he can't help you individually. So, I think he's just terrific, and he's all about making those connections. So, shout out to Dennis. Congrats. You
Yeah,
deserve the
love Dennis.
recognition, and hopefully you're listening to the Fever Focus podcast, where we are giving you the biggest shout out you're ever going to get on any other
Yeah,
Fever
yeah, it's
podcast.
it's over after this,
Yeah.
but you
We are done talking about Dennis after this
yeah.
episode, but for this year, congratulations, Dennis. Now, all right, so I guess, Casey, we did kind of tease it last episode. We were gonna rank the team names based on which one's the actual hottest. And so, I've got the standings in front of me. This is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Well, at the end of the day, it is just pure
Fun.
science. No. No, I take this very seriously. Of the ones, that are considered, heat names. That was what we were speaking of, names that have something to do with heat. That's the Fever, that's the Sun, I would count the Sparks in that, I would count the Mercury in that, and I would count, the Fire in that.
So how
I
many is that?
man, you're not I think it's 6. Fever, Sun, Sparks, Mercury,
Fire. 5.
Fire. Okay, 5.
Okay.
5. Okay. Um I've been thinking about this a lot today. In 5th place, unfortunately, I would have to give it to the Los Angeles Sparks. A spark is merely something that lasts an instant, and, I think about, the great, WWE Hall of Famer AJ Styles when he was in TNA. He would step through his pyro. Those sparks would be coming directly down onto him, and he would walk through it every single night when he came out of that tunnel. To me, that doesn't make it seem very hot.
Yeah. You can also say that the Sparks are very similar to in terms of, like, they don't last very long, like The Miz as the WWE champion. Like,
Yeah.
you know, right there for a second, but come on, we don't need it that long.
Yeah, yeah. 4th place, unfortunately, by scientific terms, it is going to have to be the Indiana fever.
Wah,
A
wah,
a
wah.
a fever starts at what, 99 degrees? Listen, man, I love my fever, but there is no chance that is any higher than any, of the other ones. So
Do we happen to know why the Indiana Fever are, were given that team name?
I do not actually.
What does that have to do with Pacers, racing, anything like that?
Well, I know at the time there was a really big push to have team names that had nothing to do with their NBA counterparts a lot of the time.
Okay.
So that, that could have something, to do with it, but yeah, I truly don't know.
Okay.
Um, that's not
Well, that's for the next episode. We can
yeah,
talk about it then. I just wanna know the history of the Indiana Fever name. I mean, unless Freddie Fever was born and they were just like, "Wow, we gotta name it after Freddie."
yeah. So up next, number 3, Portland Fire. Now, most of the fire that you see, every single day is somewhere between 1,000 degrees and, like, 2,200 degrees, which is one of those things that it probably is hotter than the surface of Mercury. I mean, it definitely is hotter than the surface of Mercury because the surface of Mercury gets up to 800 degrees, Fahrenheit, but fire is something that while it can do a lot of damage, the lack of atmosphere on Mercury is going to make that 800 degrees significantly hotter.
Mm,
So, I think that being on fire is not as bad as being,
on
on
Mercury.
the surface of Mercury. So that's number 3 being the fire, number 2 being Mercury, and of course, number 1, we all saw it coming. It is the juggernaut of fire-related items. It is the sun,
That's
the
fine.
blazing hot surface of the sun. Uh, it's by far the hottest team name. Now, what would be interesting is if the Miami Soul were still in the WNBA because Sol is just the Spanish word for sun. So
Mm.
it would be sun on sun crime,
Well, the Sun
as
are
it
leaving
were.
Connecticut, become the Comets.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Next year, things are going to get really interesting because comets are actually quite cold most of the time.
Mm.
So that's
They seem
that's
hot,
going
though.
to yeah, yeah, they seem hot, but they're cold. We'll redo the rankings next year, but for now, that's my definitive team name list.
I honestly cannot wait till next season so we can do these rankings again.
Straight up,
Just
man. I'm with you.
and fevers, can they get any hotter? I don't know. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll have to see. So, with that being said, Fever Nation, thank you all so much for tuning in. Casey and I will be gone for about a week as we have a fun holiday weekend coming up. So, we'll get back to things next Tuesday. So, thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope that the Fever can pick up some more victories as they play the Valkyrie on Friday and then head out for a road trip. So, Casey, if you're proud of the Fever for picking up this victory without Caitlin Clark, you know what to do. Hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Fever.